So is Christian experience valid? In other words, Phil, you have a great personal testimony.
Mhm.
Tell us your testimony again in like 30 seconds.
Um, I was a complete opposite of who I am now. Then I came to know Christ, got baptized, experienced something very magical that I don't, hard to describe in words, but I came out of that water. I came from a Baptist church, so got baptized in water. After that, I completely changed my personality and the way I viewed the world, view other people. And yeah, just kind of trying to embody more of those holy traits of what God is like. So uh very
Good,
different. Yep.
good. Powerful testimony. I mean, if you give your Old Testament, it's pretty powerful, right? Um, it's hard to argue with that, isn't it? Because that's your experience. I can't say, "Oh, Phil, that never happened."
Mhm.
You say, "Oh, yeah, it did." Uh, you have a better grasp on what happened than I do, right? And so if you say it happened and you're sincere, then it probably did happen, right? And so giving a personal testimony is a very powerful tool um, in evangelism and in sharing your faith. But you're going to get some blowback on that from some people. They're going to say, "Look at Phil, your Christian experience is not valid. It may be true to you, but it's just self-hypnosis. Is just your own personal rationalization. It's a psychological manipulation that you're experiencing. It's just wish fulfillment." Um, and that's going to be harder to overcome, right? And so we're going to talk about that in this chapter. How do you deal with people who say, "Well, Phil, that's a really nice testimony, but I'm not convinced that that's even a valid experience," right? You just made it up, or it was just hallucination, or was some kind of experience, that some mere psychological experience. And some people go even further and say, Christianity is merely a psychological crutch for emotional cripples who can't make it through life. Phil, you're just a weak person. That's why you had this religious experience, because you just couldn't handle the tough life and you needed some Papa God to help you, make you feel good and wonderful. You're just a loser, Phil, because you need an emotional crutch, a psychological crutch. Or, Inky, you've been brainwashed. Your parents brainwashed you into believing in Christianity. Took you to church when you were young, right? Right, Inky?
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, you were just brainwashed, Inky. The pastors brainwashed you, your parents brainwashed you, right? And you were just programmed to believe in Christianity. What do you think of that? Anyone ever tell you that?
No.
No. Let's hope not. You probably punch him in the face, right? But there's people out there who will say that. And some people go even further and they'll say that Christianity is harmful. Oh, yeah. So the last stop on the train before the mental institution is the church. Right. So all the crazy people get off at the church, and instead of going to the mental institution, they just jump off the train at the church. And the church is full of crazy people. Right. Um, and some people really had that view. I think just some of the rhetoric that I've heard in the last 4 or 5 years is like, wow, these people really believe that Christians are insane. Um, and he mentions the book. Some was a uh, professor, right? I think he was trying to become a professor, and he was denied his academic degree because he was a Christian. Right. I went to Moody Bible Institute and I studied Greek under a professor who had did his PhD at University of Chicago, and they would not give him his PhD because he wrote his dissertation on Jesus Christ, right? And he believed in the deity of Christ, believed in substitutionary atonement, and they said, "Look we're not giving you a degree because you're insane. You're crazy. No sane person believes that. We're not going to put our stamp of approval on your dissertation." So he never got his degree. A lot of Christians are getting fired from their jobs because they think they're crazy. I mean, and even it's like, well, you can't be a politician, you can't be a representative because you're gonna bring your crazy ideas. You're gonna be like jihadists, right? And you're gonna force all these weird psychological damaging ideas on us. Yeah. And so our culture is becoming more and more negative, very antagonistic towards Christianity because they really see it as psychologically damaging. And so one of the things you're going to say is Christianity is merely psychological manipulation. Pastor Earl, when you preach, do you preach to psychologically and emotionally manipulate people?
Actually, I rely on God because
You rely
faith
on
is-
God instead, huh?
Yeah, because faith is God's gift. No one can say and confess Jesus is the Lord without the help of the Holy Spirit. Because we are spiritually dead, you cannot know God, you cannot know ourselves. Paul also say, the Apostle Paul also heard that he was crazy by the King Agrippa. You're crazy. Lots of your
right.
knowledge made you
Your
crazy.
great learning has driven you mad.
Right, but
Yeah.
Paul dramatically changed when he truly met God
Right.
and when he truly knew who Jesus was, and when he truly knew his pitiful state, then he knelt before God. So and that's why we need to pray for God to open people's hearts and minds and eyes to see the truth.
That's a different approach than a lot of pastors take, though. There's a lot of pastors, evangelists out there who use emotional manipulation. And I'm sure you've been in meetings or you've seen on TV where psychological techniques are used to manipulate people into receiving Jesus or making a commitment or believing certain truths that they normally wouldn't have believed because you didn't convince them intellectually, but they were manipulated emotionally into making some kind of external commitment. And so non-Christians pick up on that. They see that and they say, look at Christianity is just merely psychological manipulation. Right? So, Inky, how would you counter that? Is Christianity merely psychological manipulation? Emotional manipulation? You became a Christian because someone emotionally manipulated you into
No, I would say
believing.
that Christianity is something that the person who believes in God, they made that choice to accept Jesus as their savior. And so it was a decision that they made consciously after praying, reading scripture, listening to messages, and really thinking about things. And I don't think it's manipulation because we all have a choice.
Mhm.
Believe in God or not to believe in God.
So we're not just stimulus response creatures? Phil,
For me,
what's that?
Christianity is the brutal fact.
Brutal fact.
Yeah, honest.
Yeah.
Honesty. When you truly know ourselves, and when you truly know God, then we have no choice but to believe in Jesus. That's the logical, very reasonable, intelligent.
Mhm. Yeah, so for faith to be genuine, it has to illuminate the mind it has to move the heart, but it ultimately has to result in a willful decision.
Mm-hmm.
If it only moves the heart, then it's not genuine faith. If it only moves the head, it's not genuine faith. If it only moves the head and the heart, it's only mysticism, right? It's not genuine faith. It has to result in a clear, definite commitment, a decision of the will, to believe in Jesus, to follow him, to submit to him. And even Jesus warned about mere intellectual faith and mere emotional faith in the sower of the seed. And so there's some people have an emotional experience, but there's no depth. And what happens to that seed, it withers and dies. Some people maybe intellectually understand Christianity, but then their heart gets entangled in the world, and the world chokes out Christianity. Some people's their hearts are very hard, they don't even want to hear it, and Satan takes it away. Right. So there are experiences and responses to faith that initially look genuine, but eventually prove to be spurious, not genuine. Right. To be shallow, to be not sincere. Because why? The heart did not submit to God. The will did not submit to God. So it has to be head, heart, and will. Right? The head, the heart, and the hands all have to be engaged. And so, yeah, there are some pastors that manipulate only the heart, right? And they get you, with the music and right, and they can get you to say, "Amen, praise Jesus," and experience things that you normally wouldn't experience, but they emotionally, psychologically manipulate you. There's other pastors just give you a lot of truth. Here's the truth, here's the truth, here's the truth. Right. Like me, right? My wife says, just like me. I hope there's some emotion. It's there somewhere. But there has to be the will, right? It has to result in a commitment to Jesus Christ, an accepting of that gift and a surrendering to him. So it's a matter of the will. So not all Christian experience can be explained on psychological manipulation. Because we're not simply stimulus response creatures, like Inky said. We have the power to choose. Now, sometimes we run around like animals and we just, are being triggered all the time, right? Stimulus response. But we have the ability to say stimulus, whoa, analyze, critique, choose, respond. Because God has made us with that ability. And so, yes, we can be programmed like Pavlov's dog. Operant conditioning does work. It's powerful, but it's not the whole story. And so that doesn't work. So it's not merely conditioned reflex. It's not merely psychological manipulation. It's not auto-hypnosis. And he gives the example of the egg on the shoulder, right? This egg gives me meaning in life, makes me feel good. Just like Phil. Phil said he met Jesus and Jesus changed his life. Well, I met this fried egg on my shoulder and I'm a different person today. I had the same experience that Phil had. My life has changed because of this egg. What'd you say to that, Phil? My egg is just as good as your God. Did the same thing for me as Jesus did for you. And I'm happy.
Well, that's a very, very strong egg you got there. For him to be
How
like
about that
Jesus.
egg?
Yeah.
Powerful.
Like I need those eggs for tomorrow morning, but
Remember, there's two questions you need to ask that person. Remember what those two questions were?
did anyone else?
Yeah. Did anyone else have that experience? How many other people are walking around with eggs on their shoulder that have had the same transformative experience? 0. Yeah, probably. How many people in the world have met Jesus Christ and have their lives transformed? Can you give me a number, Pastor Rowe? Just an estimate in history of how many people have met Jesus Christ and have their lives transformed like Phil did.
Yeah,
3?
truly, no, truly, those who truly met Jesus all have changed. That's the normal
Billion, maybe?
because Yeah,
throughout history?
to become a Christian is to be born of God.
Right.
So you have a new nature
Because
of God.
My
So
question though,
you-
Pastor O, how many
Don't know.
people in the world do you estimate have had that kind of experience? Genuine, true conversion?
countless.
Countless. Billion?
Yeah.
Hundreds of millions? Yeah. Throughout history. So 0 people besides you have had that egg change their life. Millions, hundreds of millions, or billions of people throughout history have had Jesus Christ change their life. Inky, what's the second question you would ask that person?
Second question is, what objective reality outside of oneself is the internal subjective experience tied to?
And is there any objective objective reality for that egg? No.
That's true.
That's a classic comeback to Christianity. My lamp and my car gives me the same feeling, or my puppy,
My golf.
my golf. Yeah, I
in
feel,
nature.
I walk out in nature and I have a
Why?
I have a transforming
It's better
experience.
than church.
When I see a sunset, my heart is
It's
transformed.
better than church, they say.
Right, it's better than church.
Yeah, a lot more
Yeah,
close to God. That's what they are worshiping in the internet, in the
yeah.
in backyard.
But Christian experience is based on the objective reality of Jesus Christ coming into the earth, dying on the cross, being buried, rising again. We talked about all of those objective realities. And so it's not simply pie in the sky by my, it's not simply some self-hypnosis or some wish fulfillment. It's based in a real person who really did exist, who did die on the cross for us. And we do meet and experience, right? So there's an objective reality to it. So Christianity is a personal and subjective experience that's tied to an objective historical reality.
Mhm.
Okay. If Jesus Christ did not rise from the dead, then billions of people or hundreds of millions of people would not have had that experience that Phyllis had. Right? So there would be just someone saying, "Oh, I believe in Jesus. I believe, I feel good." It'd be just similar as having an egg on your shoulder. But because Jesus Christ is a real person, who he is who he said he was, he did what the Bible said he did, and we encounter him today through his Spirit, we have a genuine experience, right? Based on historical fact. And that gives us purpose and direction, right? We have a purpose for our life, a cosmic purpose, right? We are now brought into the eternal purpose of God, the historical purpose. God's using us to fulfill his purpose on earth. Everything we do, everything we say, everything we think and feel has eternal significance. That's incredible, right? And we've been made for God. We've been made for a relationship. Carl Jung says the central neurosis of our time is emptiness. But Jesus Christ comes and fills that emptiness. He takes away that loneliness, and because we have a relationship with him. And then our quest is for peace. But Jesus Christ alone gives us internal peace that passes all understanding. And he gives us power. An egg on your shoulder is not going to give you power. But Jesus Christ, through his Spirit, gives you power to live the Christian life, to obey and to do the good works that he's created you to do and be what he's called you to be and do. Not simply do, but Christ living through me. So we've been born again to a living hope. We, in fact, are a new creation, and God takes away all that, and we have a new birth. So there is a real experiencing. Phil has experienced it. Pastor O, you've experienced it, just promoted you. Inky, you've experienced it. There is a reality to that. And others have experienced that same reality. Isn't that crazy? You can walk up to somebody and you start talking and you instantly know
Mhm.
that they've had that encounter with Christ. Is that right, Phil?
Yeah. Christianity.
You know,
Inky? How about you, Pastor O? Can you tell? Yeah. So it's a real thing. I mean, that's not psychological manipulation. That's not self-hypnosis. That's not wishful thinking. That's an objective reality, right? It's not simply me. If I was the only one, right, I would maybe question it, right? That would be hard. You're like Elijah. I'm the only one left at serving you, God, right? That'd be hard that'd be hard. But you start running into other Christians, like, wow, this is real. This has happened to people that I personally know, right? And I can tell that they've been transformed by that. So is Christian experience valid? I would say yes. So use your testimony. It is valid, it's real, it's powerful, but also be ready then to back it up by answering those two questions. Say, look, I'm not the only one who's had this experience. And it's based on the subjective reality. Oh, right. So it's not simply I'm not simply hallucinating. This is something that's genuinely real. So that gives more power, I think, to your personal testimony. Now, you don't have to do that if they don't ask the questions. But if you sense that they're not convinced by your personal testimony, you can back that up. Well, any other questions? I know we had to go a little longer today, but any questions about that chapter? Yeah. So these last two chapters, I think, were really, really powerful. I think they're really, really important. In chapter 10 too, I think 10, 11, and 12 are probably the questions that we deal with. You're going to deal with most. Maybe the existence of God, maybe the problem of evil is probably the most important, or maybe even this. Is Christianity unique? Why is Jesus the only way? And then, of course, is your experience? Those 4 questions are probably the biggies. And I would probably go back and look at those more closely. Well, I'm gonna let you go, and I will see you guys. Got Bible study tomorrow, and then I'll see you guys Sunday. All right? I gotta run. See you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.